I think I might have an addiction to talking about Super Mario Maker. I mean, this is what, the third video I've done on the subject? Oh well, at least it isn't due to some sort of deep-rooted psychological fixation. Today I'll be talking about themes. You know, like forest, underground, castle. They're the visual spice to Mario Maker's metaphorical life. And at this point, we have a whole rack full of them. As a matter of fact, we have so many themes, one might think, how could there possibly be any more? Haven't all the bases from older games been covered at this point? You poor naive fool. You utter buffoon. I'm about to dump 5 new themes on you and go so needlessly in depth about them you'll think, wow, this grown man sure thought way too hard about the visual schematics of Mario levels. And to that I'll say, yeah. Just how would these themes function if added to Super Mario Maker? What tile sets would they use? What backgrounds? Would they have to be made from scratch or could they work with pre-existing assets? And how exactly could they be integrated into each individual style? Whether or not these show up as DLC in Mario Maker 2 or in Mario Maker 3 like 10 years from now, it's still a fun thought experiment nonetheless. So let's do it. Ah, the beach. Home to beautiful shorelines and gratuitous sun blisters. It would be a hybrid water-ground style like the forest, and basically everybody seems to be asking for it. But as far as older Mario games go, there aren't really a lot of them, in the traditional sense. But I'll see what obscure assets I can cobble together to make a compelling one for each style. For Super Mario Bros., normally I'd say there's little you could do as far as beaches go. It'd have to pretty much be made from scratch or use sand tiles from Mario Maker 2's desert. But then I remembered something way more interesting and way more radical looking. The infamous glitch of World -1, which later spun off into World 9 in Super Mario Bros. 2. This aesthetic is balls to the wall nutty, but also kind of pretty in an odd way. It uses the underwater blocks on land, has green castles, and oddly technicolor semi-solids, bushes, and pipes. It also has Demon Peach and Magic Floating Bowser, but let's not talk about that ever. The style here is super janky, but the green and pink look surprisingly great together. It would definitely be a wonderful callback to the first 2 games, that's for sure. And it would probably be less of a stretch than Pipeland. But speaking of Super Mario Bros. 3, despite having an entire world based off the coastline, that specific land doesn't actually have any sand, but there is a desert world with 2 separate sand tile sets. So let's use the second sand variant from World 2, give it a blue background, and then to connect it to Waterland, let's add those weird spiral clouds that constantly show up there. You know the ones. Let's make Junji Ito proud, people. And maybe the 1x1 ground tiles could even turn into those weird blocks that only show up in Waterlands 3-8 to give it some extra unique flair, you know? Yeah, I think that holds up pretty well. Okay, Super Mario World. When I think of beaches in this game, the closest thing I can think of is Yoshi's Island 4. You know, the one with the mines and the platforms that float in the water. Also the first water level in the game, I think. So let's use that level as a base, with some lovely emerald mountains. Those are some majestic looking green rocks, I tell you ho what. Unfortunately beyond that though, the level doesn't have any ground, and the rest of the game doesn't have anything even remotely beach-like. So what tiles could you even use? Well, what I did was expand those floating platforms found all across this level into an entire ground set. It makes a real nice, neat-looking, grassy, muddy terrain, but that's such a specific fix that I'd imagine Nintendo would just make something from scratch here. New Super Mario Bros. U and 3D World, on the other hand, are extremely obvious. Using the various beaches from their games is basically a given. With New Soup, you get the lovely leaf-covered and rocky beaches of sparkling waters, specifically World 3-4 because it has pretty waterfalls and rainbows and stuff. 3D World, meanwhile, gets Sunshine Seaside, which thematically isn't super exciting, but the graphics and art style really help to pull it off. Like, that water is gorgeous. Night versions of beach levels would have the water come from the ceiling. While during the day water is bottom to top, at night it would be top to bottom, and can be moved accordingly. The water castle as a concept is a bit of an interesting beast. Out of all the themes I'll list here, this one by far has the least amount of requests going for it, but it also has the highest precedent within the 5 represented games. From the original to 3D World, each one has a direct, and obvious, level to be based off of. So why isn't it popular? Well, I guess people think we don't need 2 castles, but I think I can make a good case for it. Also, people don't really like water levels, but the forest theme is really popular and this would probably work the same, so For Super Mario Brothers, the answer is simple actually. People often forget this, but the game actually does have an underwater castle set, being a hybrid in the most literal sense, with the bricks of the castle theme and the color of the underwater theme. Simple and effective. I think it's also the only non-glitched tile set from the original game that isn't already in Mario Maker at this point, so completing the lineup would be pretty nice. For Mario 3, I'd definitely go with the castles of Waterland. For, obvious reasons. The tiled background is pretty common in castles for Mario 3, so it would be nice to have them here. In these specific castles, they're either black and white or lime green on black, since the latter is what appears in water rooms and is a really unique color scheme, we'll use that. Also, maybe to spice it up a bit, the pillars found in various castles could also be in the background. Meanwhile, the blocks are just the castle blocks but dark blue, which really fits the theming of ominous and damp. Not much else to say other than that playing this hypothetical theme with a frog suit would be really fun, nudge nudge wink wink. By far, the coolest pick for Super Mario World would definitely be the sunken ship. That was a great callback to Mario 3 and basically everybody remembers it. I've even seen my fair share of edgy creepypastas about it, so make of that what you will. The background is on point, but other than that, it just uses the ghost house tiles. So to add some uniqueness to it, I'd imagine in Mario Maker it would use a darker variant of airship parts, or maybe something more from scratch, like decomposed logs. But if that isn't what they pick, there is another alternative, specifically Vanilla Fortress. It's not quite as memorable and iconic, but I do love the cyan bubbliness of it. New Soup U's water castle is just a regular castle but underwater, which is really lame, so I would actually use a level from New Super Luigi U, specifically the outdoor segments of Larry's Trigger Happy Castle. Man, what a name. Having an open-air version of this theme would definitely be a unique take, kinda similar to 3D World's version of the Lava Castle. And speaking of which, 3D World would get Deepwater Dungeon. It has neat little flashing lights, and you could even have Plessy in the background. And I mean, who doesn't love Plessy? If these water castles were to get a night variant, I'd say it would just be the ground theme, but underwater. It's simple to make and would lead to some pretty interesting scenarios, I think. Maybe the rotten mushroom could swim after you. That would be terrifying. These magma-filled marvels would make for a magnificent Mario Maker mechanic. It'll have the lava of the castle, of course, but be more natural and less, blatantly evil. It would be totally atmospheric and have great utility, you know, because of the theming and the lava. This is another tricky one to make work, but let's give it a shot. For Mario 1, you gotta take a lot of creative liberties. What I decided to do was recolor the underwater blocks to be a bit more reddish. Then I added in some white trees from the nighttime levels to simulate ash. And then I cut the top off of those iconic mountains you know and love and then turned them white, because it just kinda looks cool. Of course, this is definitely the most customized theme I've made, so Nintendo's version would likely have literally nothing to do with it. But hey, it was fun to make. Well, for Mario 3, I'll base the theme off of the outdoor levels of Darkland, in the process combining 8-1 and 8-2. I'm assuming the ground tiles here are made of ash, since, you know, Darkland is basically just one big lava-filled hellscape. I just adore the monochrome aesthetic of these levels. The contrast is really striking and incredibly memorable. Oh, and the sky is also filled with constellations. or random floating icons, whatever, it's dope. On another note, it does remind me of Castle Black from Super Paper Mario, which is very much a good thing. Mario World was actually a surprisingly simple pick for me. I decided to base it off of Valley of Bowser 2. Just like, do me a favor and actually pretend there's lava here, thanks, okay. The background here is just avant-garde. I mean, what even is it? Puffs of smoke from the lava-filled surroundings of the valley? A bunch of huge boulders shrouded in darkness? Did Bowser projectile vomit all over the walls? I have absolutely no idea, but it looks ominous and I love it. Oh yeah, and the tile set. It's like the cave set, but like more, dirty. It complements the background and the lava really well, so I ain't complaining. New Super Mario Bros.' take on the volcano would have to be Peach's Castle 3. Did anybody else forget that this game's final world was actually Peach's Castle? I mean, why even do that if you're not gonna utilize it? But I mean, whatever. I really love the ambient lighting, and these magma-filled blocks are objectively some of the best blocks in the game. The way that it pulsates and oozes magma, I just love it. The best volcanic variant for 3D World would definitely be Fort Fire Bros. I mean, that blue lava is just gorgeous, and it really sets it apart from other levels of the same ilk. It's super intense, but the deep blues also make it feel oddly chill, which is perfectly represented by the level's music. It also has checkered floors and arches and stuff. It's like a castle that was bulldozed by a volcanic eruption or something, which is a really interesting setup. And finally, as a little added bonus, maybe enemies like Potobos and Charvargs could even turn blue to match the theming. The night levels here would be the same as the beach levels, but with ceiling lava. Remember the floor is lava? It's like that, but the opposite. Oh boy, it's mountain time! This one was fun to work on and just an epic theme in general. Not like internet epic, but like Greek epic. It's almost like if the cave and sky themes had a paradoxical baby. That was really the best description I had for it? Okay. Look, if you like rocks and high up places, and let's be honest, I know you do, then this is the theme for you. For Super Mario Brothers, we must actually venture out of the realm of Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, that's a curveball, isn't it? In Super Mario Bros. 2, the Lost Levels, the main theme here is kinda perfect in its mountainuity. The default ground tiles are a lot less brick and a lot more like a bunch of rocks stacked on top of each other. And the trees are replaced with pine trees, which, you know, are pretty common on mountains. It also has a bunch of brown mushrooms as decoration, and I think that's pretty neato. Really, the only thing you'd probably want to change is the background, so I'll take the edited hills from later levels in this game, do some resizing, and plop them in. Let's face it, Super Mario Bros. 2 is way too similar to the original to be made into its own style, so it would be nice if it could live on here as a sort of mini style within a theme within a style. I bet it would make a lot of Japanese fans really happy. You could even swap out some of the sprites, like mushrooms, brick blocks, platforms, and other stuff that look different in this game. For Super Mario Bros. 3, things get a bit unique, as instead of being a rocky and jagged mountain, I imagine a grassier, hillier one, using the tile set from levels like 1-2 mixed with the lush green mountains of World 4, maybe edited a bit to look more like how they did in Mario All-Stars, i.e. way bigger. I even plopped in those weird grassy semi-solids from that one level in World 3. Yes, that is oddly specific, thank you for noticing. For Mario World, the situation's a bit weird. This style's desert theme is basically already a mountain theme, so maybe instead of making a new mountain theme, they would just switch it around and make a desertier desert theme instead. But whatever, I'm going in on the assumption that they won't do that. I'll use the background of Tubular for this. Sure, the level sucks, but those are some great looking mountains if I've ever seen any. Meanwhile, it could use the tile set of Yoshi's Island 3, because when I think of mountains in Mario World, I always think of that level specifically. Lots of climbing in dirt, to be sure. New Super Mario Bros., another obvious choice. You know, rock candy mines, specifically the first level. I love how everything here is very subtly polka dotted, and the spires are actually kind of inspired. Haha, got him. And then there's 3D World, double cherry pass. Hands down. The pink grass and light blue dirt tile set would be incredibly unique, but the biggest standout here is the music. Like seriously, I'm not even joking here, I would kill a man to get this music track into Mario Maker. The nighttime gimmick for mountains could be scroll walking, not scroll stopping mind you, but this entirely different thing, where the camera will only follow you in one direction. You may remember this from the original Super Mario Bros., where you can only go forwards and not backwards. And from like a ton of vertical levels and 2D platformers where if you fall, you die, even though you just climbed up from that location. You know what I'm talking about. This would have a lot of utility, I think. Alright, let's go nuts. This theoretical wildcard theme would basically be a conglomeration of completely bonkers themes that have nowhere else to go. Since these levels would be unshackled to obvious and traditional concepts and, general inter-style consistency, each individual game would be allowed to show off something special only it could do. Super Mario 3D World has a really unique theme going for it, that being, of course, the circus. When I think of this game, these levels are some of the first things I think of. None of the other games have anything even close to it. The flashing neon lights, wacky music, and general playing card aesthetic make it really one of a kind in the series. For New Super Mario Bros. U, the pick was extremely easy, being of course the Van Gogh level. Painted Swampland, I think it was called. You know, that one level that made the rest of the game look like lazy and uninspired trash in comparison. It's also the second time that Nintendo has featured a real person who ripped somebody's ear off. So, it has that going for it. It would come with its own poison goop, and lots of the objects could have a new coat of paint, like the pipes. My idea for Super Mario World would be an autumn theme. You may remember that 100% completing this game changes the seasons to a lovely fall aesthetic, and it even swaps out many of the different enemies' sprites. Koopas, Bullet Bills, Piranha Plants, and Galoombas would all have unique looks in this theme specifically. As far as the backgrounds go though, they aren't changed by the 100% completion bonus, just the map. And the game's Resident Fall level is just the forest but recolored. So I went ahead and took the ground tiles from that recolored forest and combined it with the leafy background of Yoshi's Island 2. I think it turned out pretty well actually. Mario 3's wildcard would definitely be Giant Land, as it's that game's only world that hasn't really been represented in Mario Maker at this point, and it's completely unique to that game. In this theme, when certain enemies are enlarged, they'll take the form of their Giant Land counterparts instead of just being the usual upscaled sprites. The background would be filled with all the giant blocks and pipes and stuff because they're mechanically different, though I think the giant cloud could definitely be repurposed as a semi-solid. Other than that, the ground tiles are just the regular tiles but freaking gigantic. And finally, Super Mario Bros. 1. Really, a lot of the themes I previously came up with would also work here. The negative world and the lost levels would fit this category like a glove, but just saying that and being done with it is boring, so what if we got a style based on Mario Bros. Arcade? The tile set would normally be based off of the bricks found at the bottom of the screen, but the 1x1 blocks would turn into those blue platforms you all know and love. Also in this theme, Koopas, POW blocks, and even pipes could get sprite swaps to match their counterparts here, for a real, authentic look. And yeah, that's some of the stuff I came up with. I now know way too much about Mario level variations. This bleak obsession is mine solely to bear. Or not. If there are any themes you'd want to see in Mario Maker's future, leave a comment about it. If there aren't any themes you can think of, like and leave a comment anyways, it really helps, please. Either way, if this does well, I'll follow it up with a bonus video. Because, believe it or not, I have more everything I could talk about. Yes, really. So until then, this has been The Hidden Chest, and thank you for watching me talk about blocks for like 20 minutes. Okay, bye.